This is it. This is the end. This is our last Beowulf story. I'm not ready for it. I'm just not. Hi everybody, I'm Mrs. Brown, and today we are going to be reading Beowulf's Last Battle. So let's go ahead and dive on in. First off, love this picture. It's amazing looking. But it's also foreshadowing, which is so sad. This summary is not the best. So let me read it first and then let me go ahead and expand on it. It says, with Grendel's mother destroyed, peace is restored to the land of the Danes, and Beowulf, laden with Hrothgar's gifts, returns to the land of his own people, the Geats. After his uncle and cousin die, Beowulf becomes king of the Geats and rules in peace and prosperity for 50 years. Go Beowulf. One day, however, a fire-breathing dragon that has been guarding a treasure for hundreds of years is disturbed by a thief who enters the treasure tower and steals a cup. The dragon begins terrorizing the Geats, and Beowulf, now an old man, takes on the challenge of fighting it. Alright, so let's go and expand. Beowulf did go and return from Heorot to Gateland, and King Hygelac is very impressed with him, and so he gives him all kinds of lands and titles and animals. It's fantastic. Now, this story, the one with Beowulf's last battle here, does not include Hrothgar, does not include anything about Grendel, like Grendel's mother, Grendel's cousin, doesn't make any kind of appearance. Side note, if you watch the CGI version, like the CGI movie with Angelina Jolie, banish it from your brain because it is so inaccurate and it's terrible. The only thing that they get like really, really good is the first part with Grendel's ears. That was amazing. Everything else, trash. Especially this part. Just no. So Beowulf eventually becomes king of Gateland, not Heorot, and he has ruled now for 50 years. Now, think about how old Beowulf has to be for this third installment. So let's say that he was 15 when he went and battled Grendel and Grendel's mother. Then he comes on back to Gateland, and let's say it's another 5 years where then King Hygelac dies and his cousin dies, because his cousin only ruled for a little bit and then he died too in battle. So that makes him 20. So he has to be at the minimum 70 years old. Now, 70 is not the same as 70 now. Wouldn't be the same as 70 back then. So 70 is going to be like the equivalent of, I don't know, 130 years old in our world today. So Beowulf's old, okay? He's very, very old. He's a fragile dude, but he's still going to be amazing. Now, let's go and talk about the dragon. So this dragon had gone and was kind of cursed, and he had to go and watch over this treasure. And so he did, and he was just sleeping in his cave. You know, it didn't bother anyone. It was a very good dragon. And one day there was a slave, and the slave ran away because his master was terrible and he beat him. So he ran away because he's like, I can't deal with this anymore. I'm tired of being beaten. I don't like my life. And who can blame him? So he somehow gets into this mysterious cave, kind of like Aladdin does. I always kind of think of that, of how when Aladdin goes on in and there's all kinds of treasures just everywhere. That's what the slave sees. And he's never seen anything like this in his entire life. And he's starstruck. He's so impressed. So he's in awe. He's looking around. He's like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. He happens to pick up this cup. It's like a golden cup. And then he looks up and sees the dragon sleeping, and the dragon's like stirring because he senses, you know, something has changed within the force. So the slave freezes and he's like, oh my gosh, there's a dragon. So he's like, and then he slowly backs on out of the cave and then runs away, totally forgetting that he has this golden cup in his hand still. So the dragon wakes up. He is looking around, and the dragon's like, where's my cup? Apparently, it was his favorite cup. I don't know, but this dragon is mad. Remember that he was tasked that he had to go and look after this for all eternity, and now he's lost a cup. So he just wants the cup back. The slave just wants to live. He's not going to go back in there with this cup, even though he realized, oh goodness, I accidentally stole a cup. Not his fault. He was scared. So the dragon wants his cup back. He's not going to get the cup back. So he decides, let me go ahead and just destroy Gateland. And of course he's a fire-breathing dragon because, of course, if you're going to have a dragon, it has to be a fire-breathing dragon. At least I think it does. So, side note, the poor slave, he's never talked about again, but he returns to his master and then gives the master this cup. So in that way he doesn't get beaten as badly as what he would have been if he had just returned to his master. It's just tragic. Like, it's so tragic. Everyone's a loser in this story, and I just feel so bad for them. So they pretty much have skipped over the exposition that I just told you. They have just skipped over the inciting incident, which is where the slave accidentally steals the cup and the dragon is mad and is now going to attack Gateland because of it. Now we're in the rising action when the selection begins. So let's go ahead and get started. And Beowulf uttered his final boast. I've never known fear. As a youth, I fought in endless battles. I am old now, but I will fight again. Seek fame still, if the dragon hiding in his tower dares to face me. Then he said farewell to his followers, each in his turn, for the last time. That sounds a little ominous, doesn't it? You know, last time. A little bit of foreshadowing here going on there, guys. I'd use no sword, no weapon, if this beast could be killed without it, crushed to death like Grendel, gripped in my hands and torn limb from limb. But his breath will be burning hot. Poison will pour from his tongue. I feel no shame with shield and sword and armor against this monster. When he comes to me, I mean to stand, not run from his shooting flames. Stand till fate decides which of us wins. My heart is firm, my hands calm. I need no hot words. Wait for me close by, my friends. We shall see soon who will survive. Aww. So, what a guy. He is 70 plus, and he is still fighting monsters by himself. He's just like, oh no, warriors, you just go and you can be like my little sidekicks. You go ahead and wait outside. I want you to be safe. What a guy. Wait for me close by, my friends. We shall see soon who will survive this bloody battle. Stand when the fighting is done. No one else could do what I mean to do here. No man but me could hope to defeat this monster. No one could try. And this dragon's treasure, his gold and everything hidden in that tower, will be mine, or war will sweep me to a bitter death. I mean, now he's king, so yeah, the gold will be his, and he can decide how he wants to, dole it out. Then Beowulf rose, still brave, still strong, and with his shield at his side and a mail shirt on his breast, strode calmly, confidently toward the tower, under the rocky cliffs. No coward could have walked there. And then he who'd endured dozens of desperate battles, who'd stood boldly while swords and shields clashed, the best of kings, saw huge stone arches and felt the heat of the dragon's breath, flooding down through the hidden entrance, too hot for anyone to stand, a streaming current of fire and smoke that blocked all passage. And the gate's lord and leader, angry, lowered his sword and roared out a battle cry, a call so loud and clear that it reached through the hoary rock, hung in the dragon's ear. So here is the climax of the story. It is where Beowulf goes on into the dragon's lair and is in some rock, and he's not even inside, and it's already super, super hot. Oh. The beast rose angry, knowing a man had come, and then nothing but war could have followed. Its breath came first, a steaming cloud pouring from the stone. Then the earth itself shook. So I always think of Jurassic Park with that one, when the T-Rex first goes and cries and like yells for this first time, and the ground shakes, and it's just, it's cool. Beowulf swung his shield into place, held it in front of him, facing the entrance. The dragon coiled and uncoiled, its heart urging it into battle. Beowulf's ancient sword was waiting unsheathed, his sharp and gleaming blade. The beast came closer. Both of them were ready, each set on slaughter. The gate's great prince stood firm, unmoving, prepared behind his high shield, waiting in his shining armor. The monster came quickly toward him, pouring out fire and smoke, hurrying to its fate. A little bit more foreshadowing there. I wonder what's going to happen to the dragon. Flames beat at the iron shield, and for a time it held, protected Beowulf as he'd planned. Then it began to melt. And for the first time in his life, that famous prince fought with fate against him, with glory denied him. He knew it, but he raised his sword and struck at the dragon's scaly hide. Oh no. Beowulf knows that he's not going to win and that the dragon's going to kill him, but he still continues. I would have left. I will freely admit that. I would have left. The ancient blade broke, bit into the monster's skin, drew blood, but cracked and failed him before it went deep enough, helped him less than he needed. The dragon leaped with pain, thrashed and beat at him, spouting murderous flames, spreading them everywhere. And the gate's ring-giver did not boast of glorious victories in other wars. His weapon had failed him, deserted him now when he needed it most, that excellent sword. Ecgtheow's famous sons stared at death, unwilling to leave this world, to exchange it for a dwelling in some distant place, a journey into darkness that all men must make, as death ends their few brief hours on earth. Quickly the dragon came at him, encouraged as Beowulf fell back. Its breath flared, and he suffered, wrapped around in swirling flames. A king before, but now a beaten warrior. None of his comrades came to him, helped him, his brave and noble followers. They ran for their lives, fled deep in wood, and only one of them remained, stood there miserable, remembering, as a good man must, what kinship should mean. Beowulf is burning to death, and the warriors freak out. They don't go to help him, and instead they go and run away. There's only one that remains, and his name is Wiglaf. I know it looks like Wiglaf, but it's Wiglaf. Just heads up. His name was Wiglaf. He was Wexton's son and a good soldier. His family had been Swedish once. For some reason, that line just always cracks me up. I don't know why. He'd been Swedish once. Watching Beowulf, he could see how his king was suffering, burning, remembering everything his lord and cousin had given him, armor and gold and the great estates Wexton's family enjoyed. Wiglaf's mind was made up. He raised his yellow shield and drew his sword. Yeah, go Wiglaf. And Wiglaf, his heart heavy, uttered the kind of words his comrades deserved. I remember how we sat in the mead hall, drinking and boasting of how brave we'd be when Beowulf needed us. He who gave us these swords and armor. All of us swore to repay him when the time came. Kindness for kindness, with our lives if he needed them. He allowed us to join him, chose us from all his great army, thinking our boasting words had some weight, believing our promises, trusting our swords. He took us for soldiers, for men. He meant to kill this monster himself, our mighty king, fight this battle alone and unaided, as in the days when his strength and daring dazzled men's eyes. But those days are over and gone, and now our Lord must lean on younger arms, and we must go to him while angry flames burn at his flesh. Help our glorious king. By Almighty God, I'd rather burn myself than see flames swirling around my lord. So we have a new hero emerging here. And who are we to carry home our shields before we've slain his enemy and ours? To run back to our homes with Beowulf so hard pressed here? I swear that nothing he ever did deserved an end like this, dying miserably and alone, butchered by this savage beast. We swore that these swords and armor were each for us all. You tell him, Wiglaf. This part again here is not the best summary. I'll read it to you and then I'll go ahead and explain why it's not the best, and then I'll give you a better explanation. Wiglaf joins Beowulf, who again attacks the dragon single-handed, but the remnants of his sword shatters, and the monster wounds him in the neck. Wiglaf then strikes the dragon, and he and Beowulf together finally succeed in killing the beast. Their triumph is short-lived, however, because Beowulf's wound proves to be mortal, meaning he's gonna die. The reason I don't like this summary is that it does go and skip over the resolution. So let me explain it a little bit. Wiglaf does help Beowulf, and he distracts the dragon enough so Beowulf can go and wound the dragon with his dagger that he had with him. But before giving the dragon the death blow, the dragon goes and tusks Beowulf in the neck, and the tusks were poisonous. So now there's poison going throughout Beowulf, and he's in a lot of pain. And remember all those times where we were talking about the walruses? Maybe this dragon's part walrus too. I don't know. He has a tusk. The tusks were what did him in. It's so sad. But the resolution is that Beowulf, and Beowulf alone really, he's the one who goes and has the death blow. Beowulf goes and defeats the dragon. So yay, at least he does that, but now he's gonna die. At least he's protecting his people. He's doing what he loves. That's the good part. Beowulf spoke in spite of the swollen, livid wound, knowing he'd unwound his string of days on earth, seen as much as God would grant him. All worldly pleasure was gone, as life would go soon. I'd leave my armor to my son now, if God had given me an heir, a child born of my body, his life created from mine. I've worn this crown for 50 winters. No neighboring people have tried to threaten the gates, sent soldiers against us, or talked of terror. My days have gone by as fate willed, waiting for its word to be spoken, ruling as well as I knew how, swearing no unholy oaths, seeking no lying wars. I can leave this life happy. I can die here, knowing the Lord of all life has never watched me wash my sword in blood born of my own family. Interesting side note here, Beowulf doesn't have kids. Beloved Wiglaf, go quickly. Find the dragon's treasure. We've taken its life, but its gold is ours too. Hurry. Bring me ancient silver, precious jewels, shining armor, and gems before I die. Death will be softer, leaving life in this people I've ruled so long, if I look at this last of all prizes. So he's like, at least let me see what I'm dying for. Poor guy. Then Wexton's son went in as quickly as he could, did as the dying Beowulf asked, entered the inner darkness of the tower, went with his mail shirt and his sword. Flushed with victory, he groped his way, a brave young warrior, and suddenly saw piles of gleaming gold, precious gems scattered on the floor, cups and bracelets, rusty old helmets, beautifully made but rotting with no hands to rub and polish them. They lay where the dragon left them. It had flown in the darkness once before fighting its final battle. So gold can easily triumph, defeat the strongest of men, no matter how deep it is hidden. And he saw, hanging high above, a golden banner, woven by the best of weavers and beautiful. And over everything he saw a strange light, shining everywhere, on walls and floor and treasure. Nothing moved. no other monsters appeared. He took what he wanted, all the treasures that pleased his eye, heavy plates and golden cups, and the glorious banner, loaded his arms with all that he could hold. He took what he wanted, all the treasures that pleased his eye, heavy plates and golden cups, and the glorious banner, loaded his arms with all they could hold. Beowulf's dagger, his iron blade, had finished the fire-spitting terror that once protected tower and treasures alike. The gray-bearded lord of the gates had ended those flying, burning raids forever. Then Wiglaf went back, anxious to return while Beowulf was alive, to bring him treasure they'd won together. He ran, hoping his wounded king, weak and dying, had not left the world too soon. Then he brought their treasure to Beowulf and found his famous king bloody, gasping for breath. But Wiglaf sprinkled water over his lord, until the words deep in his breast broke through and were heard. Beholding the treasure, he spoke haltingly. For this gold, these jewels, I thank our Father in heaven, ruler of the earth, for all of this that his grace has given me, allowed me to bring to my people while breath still came to my lips. I sold my life for this treasure, and I sold it well. Take what I leave, Wiglaf. Lead my people. Help them. My time is gone. Have the brave gates build me a tomb when the funeral flames have burned me, and build it here at the water's edge, high on this spit of land, so sailors can see this tower and remember my name. And call it Beowulf's Tower, and boats in the darkness and mist crossing the sea will know it. With Beowulf saying goodbye here, he's saying, okay, I'm okay. I've given my life, and I'm okay with that. So sweet. And he names his next king, and it's going to be Wiglaf. And then he says, after I've been cremated, that's what it means with the funeral flames have burned me. He wants his ashes to go into a tomb and for them to build a tower, so in that way everyone will be able to see it while crossing the sea. Then that brave king gave the golden necklace from around his throat to Wiglaf, gave him his gold-covered helmet and his rings and his mail shirt, and ordered him to use them well. You're the last of all our far-flung family. Fate has swept our race away, taken warriors in their strength and led them to the death that was waiting. And now, I follow them. The old man's mouth was silent, spoke no more, had said as much as it could. He would sleep in the fire soon. His soul left his flesh, flew to glory. And when the battle was over, Beowulf's followers came out of the wood, cowards and traitors, knowing the dragon was dead. Afraid while it spits its fires to fight in their lord's defense, to throw their javelins and spears, they came like shamefaced jackals, their shields in their hands, to the place where their prince lay dead, and waited for Wiglaf to speak. Yeah, that's on you, y'all. Those bad warriors for running away from Beowulf when he needed help. Jerks. So now Wiglaf is king. What's he gonna do to these guys who were really traitors to Beowulf? He was sitting near Beowulf's body, wearily sprinkling water in the dead man's face, trying to stir him. He could not. No one could have kept life in their lord's body or turned aside the Lord's will. World and men and all moves as he orders, and always have and always will. Then Wiglaf turned and angrily told them what men without courage must hear. Wexton's brave son stared at the traitors, his heart sorrowful, and said what he had to. I say what anyone who speaks the truth must say. Too few of his warriors remembered to come when our Lord faced death alone. And now the giving of swords, of golden rings, and rich estates is over. Ended for you and everyone who shares your blood. When the brave Geats hear how you bolted and ran, none of your race will have anything left but their lives. And death would be better for them all and for you than the kind of life you can lead, branded with disgrace. Honor is so important within their culture, and these guys don't have it. And not only does it impact them, the warriors who ran away, but also their families. So their families are not going to be very happy when they get back. Then the warriors rose, walked slowly down from the cliff, stared at those wonderful sights, stood weeping as they saw Beowulf dead on the sand, their bold ring-giver resting in his last bed. He'd reached the end of his days, their mighty war king, the great lord of the Geats, gone to a glorious death. Then the Geats built the tower as Beowulf had asked, strong and tall, so sailors could find it from far and wide. Working for 10 long days, they made his monument, sealed his ashes in walls as straight and high as wise and willing hands could raise them. And the riches he and Wiglaf had won from the dragon, rings, necklaces, ancient hammered armor, all the treasures they'd taken were left there too. Silver and jewels buried in the sandy ground, back in the earth, again and forever hidden and useless to men. So that's really sweet of Wiglaf. So like one of the first things that he does is instead of going and taking that treasure and using it, he decides, nope, too bad. It's going to stay with Beowulf because he gave his life for it. And so it deserves to stay with him. And then 12 of the bravest Geats rode their horses around the tower, telling their sorrow, telling stories of their dead king and his greatness, his glory, praising him for heroic deeds, for a life as noble as his name. So should all men raise up words for their lords, warm with love when their shield and protector leaves his body behind, sends his soul on high. And so Beowulf's followers rode, mourning their beloved leader, crying that no better king had ever lived, no prince so mild, no man so open to his people, so deserving of praise. And that's the end of Beowulf, you guys. We have now finished our first story, our first unit, and now we get to go and retell and go on into our next part. Because what's the importance of this story and why is it so important for us to remember it? Well, it's really because of the storytelling and the power of a story. And that's what we're going to be looking at next. I hope you all enjoyed this story as much as I did, and we'll see you soon.